300,000 realtors are leaving the business in the next 12 months. Why is that? Well, transactions, quite frankly, are in the toilet. And what's going on with NAR, National Association of Realtors? There's a lot of headlines right now about commissions and about lawsuits that are circling. In fact, there's a lawsuit and a trial starting today in Missouri on this topic. And so that's what we're talking about today. It is October 16th, 2023. This is Ohio Real Estate. I live in Ohio. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. That's okay. Let's talk anyway. All right. So this some stats here to start things off. You've got 60,000 realtors and real estate agents that have left or quit the business since the beginning of 2023. And that's an extraordinary amount of people, but that's nothing compared to what they say are going to leave in the next 12 months. They say 250,000 more agents will exit the business in the next month. And that's an extraordinary number. I thought, well, let's look at some of that information. Let's find out, what's going on, if that's a normal thing that happens when transactions crash. And transactions actually have crashed. I mean, prices haven't crashed. There obviously has been a moderating of prices, but that's good compared to probably what's been happening in the last few years with double digit, triple digit, seems like increases. So it's okay that it's moderated, but transactions have crashed. And really, real estate agents, title agencies, loan officers, they're all really paid on the transactions, right? So if you're an agent, you're not helping somebody buy or sell a house, you're probably not going to make any money. So you have to look at it from a transaction standpoint, not necessarily a value standpoint. If houses are exponentially more expensive, sure, the agent's going to make more money because they're paid on the sale price. But in reality, the number of transactions really is what matters. And right now, Ohio, like when I looked at Central Ohio, we're down 35% year over year. And I think it's upwards of 45% in some other markets across the country. So the number of transactions since 2019 has dropped to right around in Central Ohio, 28,000, 29,000 transactions that will happen this year in Central Ohio. And what we're used to in 2019 was about 44, 45,000 transactions. So a massive difference in the number of transactions. And I thought there's some other stats here that were interesting about realtors too. The average income of a realtor is $44,000 to $87,000. That's from the research I pulled. Obviously a big band, but even at 87 grand, I mean, if you're working 50 hours a week and you put the time and energy I do into the business and you make $87,000, that's not too good. So they, I don't know that number is right, but it's from Housing Wire and the NAR, National Association of Realtor website. They say they work, that the stats I read said that on Housing Wire said that it's agents work 30 to 50 hours a week. I mean, I guess that's probably probable. Most people, I guess, probably work their jobs 30 to 50 hours a week. I don't know how you're going to be successful working 30 hours a week. And 50 seems like the bare minimum almost. And then the average agent does 6.6 transactions a month, or I'm sorry, a year. So every year they're doing 6.6 transactions when you look at the average real estate agent. So that decreased. The number of transactions actually decreased from 7.9 in 2022. Even 7.9 is not a lot of transactions. And right now there's about approximately 1.5 million real estate agents across the country, across the US. So, the question is so several questions here. If the average agent's only transacting 7 or 6, deals a year, then the bottom people must only be doing 1 or 2 a year. I mean, there must be a lot of agents that do nothing, that do no transactions a year. And I can't understand why they still keep their license. That doesn't make any sense to me. You've got to go do something else. And the median income is not anything that's extraordinary either, or the average income rather. So it's like right now, it doesn't seem like the average agent is really killing it anyway. Now you have transactions completely crashing. And no surprise, now you've got 250,000, 300,000 agents leaving the business. And if you're in real estate, if you're an agent, it probably goes for like title companies, I would imagine, and loan officers too. They say the cream rises to the top. Cheesy, really cheesy saying, but maybe that's true. Maybe as we go along with the rise in interest rates and the dip in transactions, maybe the best realtors will stick it out and stay, and the ones that are crap or the ones that don't really work are going to leave. And this is probably a cleansing that happens every time there's a downturn. The other thing I found, speaking of that, is that only half of the agents that are active right now have ever actually been involved in a downturn, a down cycle, where values drop, transactions drop, and the business gets rough. So that was pretty eye-opening. I guess I thought it was going to be more like 75% have been in the business, 15 years or something. But it looks like most of the, a good portion of the agents out there have never seen a downturn. And I'm one of them. I've only been in real estate now since 2017. So like, I haven't seen this crazy downturn of, prices. And it was real estate was good when I started in 2017, 2018. And then as obviously the pandemic came around, that was strange, but then things just took off like a rocket. And you see a lot of agents get complacent. So if you're not marketing, if you're not doing what you have to do every single day to get yourself out there, then that I don't see how you're going to make it. And to keep your license when you're not transacting any business, unless you're like sick or something, or you got to take a leave of absence, doesn't really make any sense to me, because it's not cheap to be an agent. It's not cheap. And it's not easy there. And then there's a lot of responsibility. So anyway, those are some stats about real estate agents. Also, here's a graph. I'm going to throw up a graph that I found from online. Okay, so I've got this chart that I created. I got this information from several different sources. National Association of Realtors and Housing Wire had a lot of this data. But you can see from 2010 at about 1 million agents, 2015, 1.16 million, 2020, 1.4 million. And then it went all the way up. You can see 1.6 million agents in 2022. So, everybody was all excited about real estate. Let's get into real estate. And people jumped in, it skyrocketed the number of agents. Now you look down 2023, they're saying, oh, there's going to be 1.37 million agents. So yeah, that's a loss, a big loss. And again, I would imagine I didn't go back in time further. I should have probably, but I didn't pull those stats. If anybody knows out there how many agents, quit the business when things got bad in 2008, I guess, or if you were around then in real estate, I'd love to hear from you. And please comment below, because love to know. I'd love to know what's happening with agents who have been, kind of been down this road already. So yeah, that's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. How many agents are taken off. Okay, let's talk about NAR now briefly. So National Association of Realtors, or NAR, has been involved in some various lawsuits over the past year, and they're currently involved in some lawsuits about there's one some lawsuits are about sexual harassment. We're not going to talk about that today. More so, what I want to discuss is the commission lawsuit they're involved in. So the National Association of Realtors, they really control something called the MLS, or the multiple listing service. The multiple listing service is the place where agents go to list property for sale for clients. And it's the website where you can go and pull a list of all the properties for sale, all the sold properties, all the properties that expired. And it's really the data behind realtors. I mean, in all honesty, without the MLS, the realtors are kind of, from a data standpoint, they'd be blind. and NAR controls the MLS. So the National Association of Realtors controls basically regional MLS and real estate boards throughout the United States, and they're the ones that control access to the multiple listing service. So if you're a real estate agent, you have to go through a bunch of different checks and balances, and obviously pay a fee. It's like $1,200 a year to be a member and to have access to the MLS. And NAR is really strict with it. Like if you and the MLS is really strict. Like if you decide that you don't want to have access to the MLS as a broker, none of your agents can have access to the MLS. And so it's it's controlled, and it really is all the data that we need to make the real estate world go around. So one part of the lawsuit is that the commissions that agents are receiving, um, and this is via the MLS. So on the MLS, when you list a property for sale, you post in the MLS how much you're going to give the buying agent, offer the buying agent, the one who brings the buyer to the table, how much of the sale you're going to offer. And in Ohio, it's typically 3%. That's like standard. So it's like the seller pays 6%. So the seller pays all the commission, and the buyer agent gets 3% of that, and the selling agent gets 3% of that. And that's inside the MLS. And to post a property on the MLS, you have to offer a commission, but that is changing evidently. And I don't know the exact details of this, except to tell you that it is changing, and they want to make it so that you don't have to offer a buyer agent commission, and a seller can choose, I'm not going to offer that. I don't want a buyer agent commission. And so bear with me, because this is a little funky. But if you're not, if so the big hang up now is that the sellers are offering those commissions, or are paying the commissions of the buying agent. And the lawsuit says basically that they shouldn't have to do that, and they should have a choice if they want to do it. Well, they do have a choice right now. They don't have to pay for the buyer agent commission necessarily. They have to pay some of it, I guess. But I mean, there's multiple ways to get it done, right? You could obviously offer a lot less for the buyer agent. Like you could offer like a flat fee of like $100 on the MLS, or like 1% instead of 3%. Um, I've had sellers try to negotiate the commission rate with me, but maybe this is why a lot of agents are leaving, because of these things that are happening. I don't know that that's the case. I think it's just the business is being down so much. But in any case, right now, the way it works is that the seller pays that commission, and at the closing table, my broker gets 3%, the buying agent gets 3%. I guess the lawsuit and the folks involved in the lawsuit don't like that. They want the seller to have the ability to pick the commissions and negotiate them completely. So if they don't want to give any commissions to the buyer agent, they basically say, well, we don't want to have to do that. We want to just be able to pay the selling agent and not the buying agent. And then the buyer would end up having to pay the buyer agent. And this is strange, and here's why it's strange. It's strange because at first thought, I go, well, if their buyers aren't represented, because let's be honest, right? Like, are most buyers going to just say, well, that house is 100 grand, I'm going to give 103 grand and use an agent? I don't think that's going to happen. I think most people will say, well, I don't need that agent to go find a house. I mean, how hard is it to go on Zillow or go on Realtor.com and find a house and go see it? Not hard, which is true. It's really not hard to find a property for sale. I mean, they're all over the internet, but like that's just like that's not even part of the process, really. That's easy. The real part of the process is actually going through the buying, the contract process, the offer process, being strategic on what type of offer you make, what your inspection looks like, when your closing date is, what kind of concessions are you going to offer, what do you want in addition to what the seller's offering, what price are you going to offer? Maybe I already said that, but there's a lot that goes into the contract and the buying process than just picking the house online. So right now, those agents are again, the buyer agent's being paid by the seller. And so the reason that happens, as far as I can tell, and like I said, I've only been in the business, what, 6 years? From what I can tell, is it's a cooperation thing. It's a clear cooperation, meaning, and that's why the buying agent gets half the commission, because I want a buyer agent to work hard for their client, but I also want to cooperate with them to close the deal. And as a realtor, I have a duty to my client, and I have a duty to the transaction to move it along as quickly as possible and do what's right. Um, but if that cooperation doesn't exist, if there is no buying agent, let's pretend somebody goes out, makes an offer on a house that I've listed, and calls me and says, "Hey, Jason, this is Jim Bob Smith, and I went through this house on Main Street, and I really like it. I want to make an offer." Okay, great. They call me as the agent. Remember, pretend for a second there is no buyer agent, because this buyer said, "I don't need an agent." So he did that, and it's happened before, right? People call me and say, "Hey, I'd like to go see that house, or I'd like to make an offer on that house," and they're not an agent. They don't have an agent, and that's fine. But the problem I see coming is that these consumers are going to get railroaded by agents, and they're going to get railroaded by sellers, because I don't think the average homeowner, the average buyer has been, I mean, have they been involved in 3 transactions in their life? Real estate transactions, 5, 10, 30. I doubt 30, right? So if the average agent is closing 7 transactions a year, that's 7 experiences in their pocket. If they do that for 3 years or 5 years, I mean, that's a good amount of transactions to go through to at least understand how the process works and the nuances and what to watch out for. But if I'm representing a seller and there is no buyer agent, that buyer, unrepresented buyer, may have some problems in the process. For instance, the buyer may come back to me and say, "Here's my offer, Jason." And I get it. And the first thing I notice is, let's pretend that they didn't put an appraisal contingency in the contract. Because if the buyer's agents aren't involved, what contract would they use? It's going to be just like some kind of contract, just whatever they draw up on a napkin. Sure, you can do that on a real estate deal. You don't have to have an official board contract. Anybody tells you that's nuts. You can write up a contract. I've had buyers and sellers give me contracts that are like just 4 or 5 lines, and are missing everything, missing title insurance, missing appraisal contingency, missing finance contingency. And so let's pretend a buyer doesn't include those things in his offer. Well, then instinctively, I would counsel somebody to say, "Hey, this contract you wrote isn't very good. Like, there's a lot of problems here and a lot of danger for you and exposure." But, and typically the buyer agent would go through that with the buyer and direct them away from the landmines. But if they don't have an agent, then how are they going to be directed away from the landmines? And so I can't direct them away because I'm working for my seller. And so now the buyer's on his own. And I can see a lot of problems coming from this. And I'm not saying there aren't problems now. I mean, I'm not saying that agents are perfect, or that the commission structure of real estate is exactly perfect. Somebody told me yesterday, they said, "Hey, this is a strange situation we have today, in today's day and age in the United States, with real estate, because the seller is paying for the buyer side to negotiate against them, basically. Like, they're paying for the guy that's competing against them," which is true, but technically true, I guess. But the reality is, again, that you're paying that buyer agent to bring a buyer to the table and to complete the transaction, because there's a lot of steps and a lot of landmines, especially with financing, that could go wrong. Every agent has war stories about that particular deal that took 3 months to close, that should have taken a month, but there were so many little hiccups and things that happened. Maybe you're selling a house, listing a house for somebody, and there's all of a sudden, in the middle of the winter, there's a water leak, right? While you have the house listed, it's under contract, there's a water leak from a bursted pipe. Well, how do you handle that? If you've never been through the process, if you have nobody to talk to ask, you're except Google, right? Or Chat GPT, like what are you going to do? And then consequently the deal falls apart. So the seller has a incentive to make sure that there's clear cooperation between agents. And it kind of makes everybody play nicely inside the circle. So as an agent, I have duties to the transaction. I have duties to be loyal, to process paperwork correctly, to handle accounting correctly, and to disclose things that are material problems. I have duties um, to sometimes all the parties, but particularly my client. If 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 the buyer agent's involved and he doesn't have those duties, I'm sorry, if the buyer's involved without an agent and he doesn't have those duties, there's kind of the rules are it's kind of the Wild West. Rules are out the window. Um, I suspect that Redfin just left the National Association of Realtors, and I suspect one of the reasons they left is that they don't like the control that the MLS has on, or that NAR has on the MLS. I think Redfin probably wants the the system to be open. They want an open source system. Uh, it seems like that's what they're after, and they want something where everybody has access to all the data. Um, it's I mean, really, access to all the data is there already most of the time. I mean, you can go onto most county websites and look at public records and see what's been sold and what's been purchased. At least in Ohio, you can. I don't know about every state, maybe not, but that information is out there already. And if you want to find a for sale by owner, you can find that on Zillow. You can find that um, on Craigslist. There are tons of places to find those houses for sale. So at the end of the day, the open source concept, I don't know that that's really a big deal. I don't care if there's an open source concept. If I don't have to pay for the MLS, um, great. The issue is though, like, how are people going to post things on there? Is it going to be like Craigslist? Hey, I'm just going to post this for sale. Um, I promise I won't discriminate against anybody, any race, religion. Really? You're going to promise? Like, you haven't been through the training. You haven't gone through ethics training. You haven't essentially signed something saying you're going to abide by these guidelines. You've just filled out a website. I would think there's going to be a massive amount of scams if anybody can just post on the MLS for sale. I can't imagine the stuff that's going to come out. Like, I mean, right now I get dinged if my yard sign is in the picture that the photographer takes when I list a property. I get fined from the MLS for that. I get fined if I put personal branding in the picture at all. I get fined if I don't have a photo up for the listing in a certain amount of time after it's been entered. So there's all these rules around the MLS, and I guess they're just going to do away with the rules because Johnny homeowner's not going to know that I'm going to get fined if I don't abide by the MLS rules. Obviously, he's not going to be, probably. So how are they going to police this? I mean, who's going to police it? Is it just going to be like a Chat GPT of real estate? Maybe that's what they're after, right? Chat GPT for real estate. So it's it's kind of a big mess. I'm a realtor. I'm in real estate. I'm also an investor here in Ohio, but uh, I'm just doing my job, right? Just continuing to service clients and help them out. I imagine most realtors probably are, and that's really all you can do right now, anyway, right? You can't theorize what's going to happen in the future and then try to adjust now. I'd imagine any rules they do change will be a while before they're changed or they go into effect. But who knows? It's definitely a mess. All right, so let's look at this trial. I'm going to read this article. This is from CoStar, and I want to make sure. Let's see. Okay. So this article is about the trial that's starting actually today, and Okay. The first of two class action lawsuits with potential to bring major changes to the home selling industry is set to go to trial Monday in federal court in Kansas City, Missouri. That's today. Plaintiffs seek to eliminate what they see as billions of dollars of unnecessary agent commissions, while the National Association of Realtors says it's fighting against what could be a wild west of decentralized property listings should it lose. And that's what I was talking about. If you're just entering data in the MLS and have zero experience doing it, or maybe just a little experience because you sold your house, with a yard sign, it's not that you can't sell your house by yourself. You certainly can. It's that the system that you're using now has rules and framework around it. Anyway, we'll go back to the article. Results of the case and a larger one expected to go to trial in Chicago next year are expected to have significant ramifications for the Chicago-based NAR, as well as multiple listing services throughout the country and rank and file residential brokers. A group of Missouri home sellers brought the Burnett versus NAR lawsuit headed to U.S. District Court in Kansas City, arguing the long-standing process by which residents are sold is anti-competitive because it requires sellers to list their properties in the MLS while agreeing to a predetermined condition, typically 6% split evenly between the seller and the buyer broker, with a few realistic options to reduce the amount of those few fees. Plaintiffs in both Midwest cases say preset commissions artificially push up home prices. Okay, so they're saying the reason why home prices are so high is because of commissions. So I guess if I'm selling a house at 100 grand and I got to pay 6% commission, theoretically I'm pricing it at 106,000 because of that commission. Well, I'm not saying that they're correct there, but I can definitely tell you conversation after conversation with sellers typically involves showing them and explaining what they're going to net, how much they're going to net out of the sale. And a part of the fees involved are the commissions, and along with title fees and county fees, recording fees and stuff, and taxes. But this is basically saying house prices are too expensive because of the commissions. So because of the lawsuits the NAR faces, at least, major changes to the way its members do business. We're confident we will prevail in proving the lawfulness of the rules under attack, the NAR said in a statement to CoStar News. Industry professionals have told CoStar that in the worst case scenario for NAR, the organization could be hit with billions of dollars in legal penalties, putting many multiple listing services out of business and erasing billions of dollars in future broker commissions. So that's the worst case scenario. The NAR would be hit with billions of dollars in legal penalties, and many multiple listing services would be out of business. So let's pretend that there is no MLS anymore in Columbus, in Central Ohio. And I'm trying to think what I would do. Well, I'd still go out and sell property for people. I mean, we wouldn't have the MLS, but like that wouldn't stop us from selling property. A lot of people sell property off market. So I think we could figure out a way to still sell property. And in Ohio, you can get access to all the sold data too. So I think that's probably something that I could finagle as well. But it'd be a pain. Not having an MLS would be a pain, obviously. In recent weeks, two major brokerages named in the lawsuits agreed to settlements, and some companies have made other moves to distance themselves from NAR. Sorry, I'm a little tired today. That led the NAR's Deputy General Counsel, Leslie Muchow, to warn of potential scenario in which databases of available homes are decentralized and consumers are left to sort through piecemeal information. Yeah, I mean, if there's not a system in place, and there's a lot of time, so don't get me wrong, there's a lot of times during the day working with the MLS or entering data, and I've been fined before because I had a sign in the picture. They can be a pain. It can be something that you don't enjoy doing, is working with the MLS. And a lot of new agents wonder they why there's so many rules. But the rules are in place to keep the data consistent. And I think if you remove those rules, the data is not consistent. So I'll give you a great example: is a square foot rule. A lot of homeowners will say, "Oh, my house is 2,500 square feet," when the county auditor will show 2,100 square feet. Well, in the MLS, when I enter a listing, I have to use the 2,100. I can put 2,500, but that's a second category, and I have to note that it's from the owner. But now pretend that the MLS doesn't exist anymore, and it's just like Redfin, like picture Redfin, but every property is listed on there that's for sale through the country, and that's where you're going to go and find information, or Chat GPT for real estate, right? You've got a situation then where there's going to be a bunch of sellers entering their properties and entering them incorrectly. Maybe they say, I think it is 2,500 square feet. So now the square foot's 2,500. Now that property sells at 2,500, and they use 2,500 as a price per square foot. Now, when you go back as a buyer and you look at comparable sales, you go, hey, that 2,500 square foot home sold at that much per square foot. But in reality, it's only 2,100 square feet. So it's like that regulation they have now keeps data consistent for consumers, in my opinion. We will be forced back into the 19th century, or what we see as the Wild West, where unscrupulous people can regularly defraud clients, Muchow said in a recent online presentation. According to Real Estate News, if MLS broker marketplaces didn't work the way they do now, there would be no centralized hub and source of available homes. Buyers would have to visit every single broker in town in order to see all the available inventory that is out there. No one's going to do that. Visit brokers? I don't think people do that. I mean, they probably do, but like, it has to be like 75%. I'm guessing at this. 80% of home searches start online. 90%. I mean, who knocks on a broker door? Next thing you know, you have a phone book, right? Both class action lawsuits are regarding the so-called participation rule, in which the NAR long has required home sellers to use their members' MLS database of homes, while also requiring sellers to declare the commission available to both buying and selling brokers in advance. That has included a requirement to specify the commission available to agents representing home buyers. The NAR has said sellers are allowed to go well below the 6% standard, but critics point out that homes not offering a high enough buyer broker commission are likely to languish. So that's a good question, like a good point. So if you're a seller and you're not offering that 6% commission, 3% to each side, let's say it's 1% to the buyer broker, does that dissuade people from buying the home? I don't think so. Excuse me, but it could buy with some agents, I guess. It is possible. NAR's guidance for local MLS brokerage marketplaces ensures consumers get comprehensive, equitable, transparent, and reliable home information, and that brokerages of any size, service, or pricing model get a fair shot at competing. The NAR said in its statement, the result is an efficient model for brokers to serve sellers and buyers and market-driven pricing for consumers. I see their point there. Not saying it doesn't need tweaked and looked at, but overall, regardless of the lawsuits they're going through, from being in the business for the time I have, I can tell you that the rules in place are designed to keep agents honest, to keep the transactions as honest as possible. And I will also say that the MLS and the Board of Realtors, like, they're very, very sticky with the rules that they put in place. And I can't imagine them policing that. Obviously, they're not going to for the average homeowner or home buyer who's unrepresented. But like, if they're not holding those home buyers accountable like they are, or in home sellers like they are with agents, like, they can just do anything. Stunning admission of guilt. In a recent twist, the NAR appeared to step back from its longtime requirement that a seller offer at least some broker agent commission. now saying sellers can offer zero to the buying broker. So from now on, um, I imagine what may transpire is that there has to be some type of form signed, maybe that's going to come out, where a seller has to acknowledge that they're paying for the buyer broker as well. Now they already signed that on a listing agreement, and I explain it to every client, but there may be something separate that has to be signed there. The lead counselor for the Missouri plaintiffs, Kansas City-based Michael Ketchmark, described the move to allow zero buyer commissions as a change from previous NAR guidance and a stunning admission of guilt, according to an Inman report. In its statement to CoStar News, the NAR downplayed the recent shift in guidance. NAR's policies require that an offer of compensation be made without specifying an amount. Practically speaking, the difference between an offer of 1 penny and zero is negligible. And regardless, those offers are always negotiable. That's true. The commissions are negotiable. I've had client after client negotiate commissions with me. That it happens. And so as a buyer, or as a seller rather, you have that ability to say, hey, I'm signing this listing agreement. I'm only going to pay 4%. Now, then it determines, all right, is the agent going to give the buyer broker 1%? Or are they going to split 2% each way? Which one? Don't know. The NAR's apparent change in guidance comes amid a whirlwind of changes for the organization, including former President Kenny Parcells' resignation after a New York Times report in which he was accused of sexual harassment and fostering a toxic workplace. Parcells has denied the allegation. To me, that's completely separate. Like, the way they operate with commissions and the MLS doesn't have anything to do with sexual harassment. It just doesn't. So those are two separate things. Two of the other defendants in the Missouri case and the upcoming Mueller versus NAR trial in Chicago, Anywhere Real Estate and Remax, have agreed to pay more than $138 million combined as part of legal settlements. Now, Anywhere Real Estate, they're agreeing to pay something because of they were scamming home sellers with 40-year listing contracts. And they were doomed when they started doing that. So they were up to no good anyway. Remax settled, I believe, because of buyer commissions, because a bunch of buyers were upset that the selling party paid commissions on their behalf, I guess, to help them find a home. But they're saying that increased the house price too much. So they also said their brokers no longer would be required to belong to NAR or follow the organization's rules, including guidelines on setting commissions. Redfin, which is not involved in the lawsuits, recently made a similar move. Yeah, Redfin left the National Association of Realtors. So the article goes on, but there's, at the end here, it says that NAR has more than 1.5 million members. We said that at the beginning. And the organization sets guidelines on how homes should be listed and sold. Its members have about 560 MLSs in the United States and about 40 more in Canada, according to NAR. So there's 560 MLSs throughout the United States, different databases, and they all operate the same based on NAR rules. But now you would change that if things change the way these plaintiffs want to change them. Basically, you would just go out there and try to find a property online in whatever system that they have, and then you determine if you want an agent or not. The buyer probably may pay for the agent at that point, or sellers could still pay for agents. But in any case, it looks like there may be changes coming. So if you're a realtor, I wouldn't bury your head in the sand, but I would definitely look at some of these articles. I'll put a link to this in the description below. But so you've got agents leaving because transactions have crashed, and now you have lawsuits about how commissions are being paid. It's definitely interesting, that's for sure. So at the end of the day, as a realtor, you just got to do what you got to do. You got to do your job. You got to help clients. You got to service them correctly. And if you do that, things will work out. If they change the rules on us, we'll figure out something else to do. Figure out another way around it. And is that wholesaling? Do you wholesale real estate at that point? Is that what you do? I don't know. There's a lot of people that make their living selling real estate and representing clients. So anyway, that's the video today. This is one of my first videos, if you can't tell. And I'll get better, I promise. Anyway, I love real estate. I have a great time doing it. I want other people to join me in the journey. I am a small town realtor in Ohio and nowhere, Ohio, and an investor. And that's what the channel is going to be centered around: is buying, selling, real estate as an investor and as a homeowner or a home seller, keeping everybody up to date on what's happening, particularly in Central Ohio real estate, but also nationally. And I don't know. Come back again, join me. I'll probably do this again the next couple days. Bye bye.